the money that we'd sort of saved and put together in this house and the things I'd sold, in 7 weeks was spent, and more money I might add, because I borrowed more money. And then after 7 weeks, everything had gone. You know, and you sit there, you got no house, you got no drive, all you've got is a lovely wife, and no job.
The 1992 FIA Formula One World Champion is Nigel Mansell.
The years of sacrifice, the years of frustration, all melted away as Nigel Mansell, recovering from his recent operation, hopped up the steps to collect his World Championship award earlier this month in Paris. Britain's first Formula One World Champion for 16 years, for the second time the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Nigel had much to reflect on as we met to review his World Championship season. Nigel, you've dreamt about that World Championship for so long. What's the reality like?
Getting better every minute, every day. As Jackie Stewart has told me, with time it even gets better.
It certainly made you a busier man, hasn't it?
Oh dear, I mean, every single day we sort of have appointments on the hour for various things, and I mean, we're fully scheduled and booked now for the next 10 days, and that encompasses 3-4 different countries, and at the end of it, it's actually finishes in the Isle of Man with the Lieutenant Governor throwing a huge party for the island and my good self before we return to America, which is fantastic.
Well, we're going to take a look back now at how you achieved that world title. It all began in South Africa, South African Grand Prix at Kyalami, beginning of March. And this was the event that welcomed South Africa back as a host and participant in world sport. And they got a graphic insight into the scale of the modern Formula One World Championship. For any racing driver, Formula One is the peak of the sport. For engineers and innovators, this is the cutting edge. Ayrton Senna and McLaren came to Kyalami defending the World Championship for both drivers and constructors. There was exciting new talent, the German Michael Schumacher. Surely this would be the season he'd claim his first Grand Prix victory. His Benetton teammate Martin Brundle, a last chance for the British driver to show his undoubted talent. From Ferrari, a legendary reputation but no great optimism. The team management had been in turmoil, and the former world champion Niki Lauda was drafted in to try and put things right.
All I'm really doing is to be an advisor to Mr. Lombardi, who is in charge, and they all want to do is just to use my experience and see if I can help. So really all I'm doing is watch the whole team performing, and if I see something I just give my comment. But really the specific problem is that Mansell is quicker.
From the first Kyalami qualifying session, Mansell and Williams were a class above the rest.
I start the season, I believe, in the strongest position at any start of any one year. Myself, mentally, physically, being focused, the car, we know the car. The only thing we've got new is the active. We've got certainly 70% better chance of getting the job done this year, from the word go.
And it's go, and Mansell's got away extremely well as they go up to the first right-hander. And sure enough, the McLaren has dropped right back, and up to the first left-hander. That is turn 4. It's Mansell in the lead.
And this looks like a real tough uphill struggle for the McLaren. Senna is going to have to fight. A lazy charging in 4th place.
Riding round with Ayrton Senna into the turn 3. This is where there is a 4G loading on the drivers. 155 miles an hour at this point. This is turn 4 down to 70 miles an hour underneath the banner in a moment, and on towards turn 5. That's the right-hander where there is a 4.5G loading. Mansell took that corner once in 6th gear yesterday, and that was on his pole position lap.
Senna clearly struggling for speed. Mansell very comfortable in the lead. He's now got nearly 5 seconds, 4.8 seconds. Mansell betrays it.
I believe it's only the brilliance of Ayrton Senna that's keeping the McLaren in 3rd position, because look how Gerhard Berger is struggling behind Schumacher there in the Benetton, who is still chasing a Lacey.
Well, he's done everything right today. No mistakes from Nigel Mansell. A marvellous drive. It's been easy, but he's handled it perfectly professionally. Tremendous win and a great start to 1992.
And Mansell crosses the line, waves to the crowd, and he coasts across by his standards to take the checkered flag before a delighted Frank Williams.
Where was the point during qualifying for that race that you felt that you had something special with the Williams team?
I would say December of the previous year. Frank and Patrick called me back from Florida, already having agreed that I'll have at least a month off before Christmas. And quite rightly so, they called me back because it was a major decision whether we'd go passive or active on the suspension for the 1992 season. And we came back to Barcelona, and we had a 5-day test, and I did 3 days down there. Unfortunately, we had a day and a half, or close to 2 days in the dry before the heavens opened. But it was enough to say, right, let's commit and go the active route. And I really felt that if everything came our way and we could get the reliability, that was the way to go to be ultra competitive. Because we knew that although Renault was doing a fantastic job, on the engine performance we could only at best get close, but we wouldn't surpass the Honda power. So we had to sort of do something on the car to have a little bit more in the pocket.
And then you produced this sequence of 5 victories, 5 straight wins at the start of the season. There were tough races within that sequence. Certainly Barcelona was one, wasn't it?
I mean, Barcelona, yes, I think it was one of the biggest frights I'd ever had in my life, really, when I was in the lead with 17 to 19 seconds. And I guess that I was defending my position in Barcelona because the conditions were atrocious. But then, I mean, this young, splendid upstart, Michael Schumacher, was catching me at about sort of 2 or 3 seconds a lap. And I was pushing real hard, but staying, if you like, with the margin, because I didn't want to sort of make any mistake. And there's no question that the active works totally different in the wet than it does to the dry. I would say that whatever advantage there is disappears totally, because you can't lower the car. Because if you do, you just aquaplane. The bottom of the car touches the water of the track and you just aquaplane and lose your steering and everything. So we have to raise the car incredibly, and maybe in some respects higher than the normal car. And so then I had this fright of Michael catching me, and he got within 5 seconds, and I was pushing harder and harder in the car. And I was saying to myself, I don't believe this, I really don't believe it. And I was tense in the car, and I was thinking, how many laps to go? And I was thinking, well, I'm going to lose it, but I'm not going to spin off. I just didn't want to spin off.
Schumacher still everything to play for. Mansell having to defend and under threat for the first time this season. And this is a test indeed for Nigel Mansell. The conditions are horrible, and one that he doesn't want to be put to, and Mansell has put in a quick one, and Mansell has indeed kept something in hand. He has responded to Michael Schumacher.
So then I changed my lines totally, changed the setting of the car as well a little bit, and then started to sort of, I stayed with him, he didn't catch me anymore, and then I managed to pull away. And I tell you, the relief I had in that car, it was like the first couple of laps I extended the gap, I felt as though I'd already won the race. I mean, the tension just drained out my body because I was really tense.
Another fright during that 5-race sequence came in qualifying in Brazil when you went off with Ayrton Senna. What precisely happened there?
Well, I will tell you exactly what precisely happened. I mean, at the time, I covered it up. And you know, drivers cooperate at times with one another, and you actually can point outside the cockpit when you actually catch someone on a quick lap which way to overtake them. And I called Ayrton very quick, which was shown on television, and he pointed outside the cockpit which side for me to overtake. And I thought, hey, he's cooperating, great. So I went for it. Then all of a sudden he accelerated alongside and shut the door, and we ran out of track. So for whatever reason, let's say there's a miscommunication. I don't know, but it wasn't terribly helpful. It certainly gave me a good headache and a reminder not to trust him.
We can contrast that with what happened in Monaco. You were leading, you were heading towards a possible 6th victory. You came into the pits and then re-emerged behind Ayrton and locked into this terrific struggle over the closing laps. First of all, why did you come into the pits?
Well, it was one of those situations that all the wheel nuts were tightened up on the grid, but somehow, for whatever reason that the team might know, the engineers, that the outside nut on the left side of the car came undone a couple of turns, which just then cocked the wheel, and of course the space between the wheel rims and the uprights is very, very small, only needs a little bit of a tilt, and it started to machine the inside of the wheel, which acted like a brake, and coming through the tunnel the car almost went into a spin, and I thought, I got a puncture, straight away. So I had to come back to the pits very, very gingerly. The crew did the best job they could possibly, because you can imagine with only 8 laps or so to go, they were in a panic too. They pulled the wheel off with the wheel nut in the gun, but unfortunately, if I understand correctly, as the gun came out the wheel nut came out the gun and went spinning down the pit lane. So then we had to get another wheel nut to go in the gun to put the other wheel on and tighten up. So it was a little bit longer stop than perhaps it should have been, but they did a superb job in getting me back out. And of course, unfortunately, I came back out literally 3 or 4 seconds behind Ayrton with a number of laps left.
And as they come through to complete lap 75 with 3 laps to go, Ayrton Senna has got to keep Mansell behind him for 3 whole laps, and Mansell will never have been more determined to get past anybody. These two are the implacable rivals in Formula One, and you can see for yourselves what the situation is now as Mansell swarms around all over the McLaren into Casino Square again. There's 3 laps of this that Ayrton Senna has got to resist, and Nigel Mansell knows that the man ahead of him is the man that can deny him his 6th successive Grand Prix victory and his first Monaco Grand Prix win. And it could be the chicane. Remember that last year, the chicane that they approach after they have left the tunnel is where Mansell did his stupefying passing manoeuvre on Alain Prost Ferrari to move up to 2nd place. This is where he did it. Senna probably remembers that too. This is lap 76. They're going to be starting the last lap of 1 at the end of this one. What a battle for the lead. Senna closes the door out of the swimming pool. Now this is Mansell's opportunity as they come up to Saint-Devote. He's tucked right under the rear wing of Ayrton Senna's McLaren. This is the start of lap 77, the last lap of 1. Even if Mansell doesn't get past Senna, and he's going to have a job, this is going to be probably the closest finish we've ever had at Monaco.
This is really tremendous stuff. Nigel Mansell really showing us what he hasn't had a chance to show us all year, what a racer he is, and this is it. And Senna, all his skills involved. He's got a much slower car, courtesy, quite apart from the different relative performance of the actual cars. He's got very clapped out tyres on his car. Mansell's got fresh rubber on, all the grip in the world, but this is narrow, this is Monaco, and it will be a major achievement if Mansell can get past. Right with him, Senna blocking away and sliding a lot, Senna knocking it down, and he almost came to a dead stop there.
Mansell weaving this way and that way, but Senna won't let him past. He's got the racing line, he's going to keep it. This last lap coming up, of course, is going to be the crucial one. See, Senna's just got to put his car in the right position, and there's no way that Mansell could get through, and it won't be at the Rascasse. It could be at Saint-Devote again. But Senna demonstrates that Honda have caught up with Renault as terms of engine power. Mansell said they had yesterday, and Senna actually pulls away a little bit last lap.
You can see how careful Senna is as he exits the Rascasse. He doesn't hurry through it. He gets the car pointed and gets on the power very early, and that's protected him each time. And Senna through the Casino Square, down the hill to Mirabeau is an important point, but he's got just enough breathing space there from Nigel Mansell, and it's going to be from the chicane onwards. No passing here around the Portier, not into the tunnel. Senna early on the power, I'm sure. Now through the bend in the tunnel.
It's got to be a brilliantly courageous move by Nigel Mansell if he's going to win the Monaco Grand Prix for the first time, because Senna knows that he's got considerably less than half a lap between himself and his first victory of 1992. This is the swimming pool. It's only the left here, the right again, the left, and into the Rascasse, and I do not see how Mansell, even Nigel Mansell on fresh tyres, is going to be able to get by. He can't. Ayrton Senna has won the Monaco Grand Prix almost certainly as he exits the Rascasse. Mansell closes, but it's too late, and Ayrton Senna wins at Monaco for the 5th time in 6 years.
Nigel Mansell showed us his great qualities as a racer, and that was tremendous stuff.
Ayrton actually admitted in the press conference that he brake tested me all over the circuit, and I can say to everybody out there that he did just that.
Describe what you mean by brake testing.
Well, when you're accelerating out of a corner, you don't expect someone to dab the brakes to hit them up the back, because you're already accelerating around the corner. Going into a corner, you can brake a little bit earlier or a little bit later, so you've obviously got to stop for that corner. But coming out of a corner or halfway through a corner, just to come off the pan and dab the brakes when there's nowhere to go left or right, that's pretty tricky, because you can just hit someone up the back, and you can damage your front wings, or you can even puncture your tyre or whatever. And he did that to me probably 20-30 times on those last few laps, and I was just real pleased that I didn't run into the back of him. And I must confess, and I say this now, that I thought about it. I actually thought about it. Well, if he keeps on doing it, if I pick the place just right, maybe a right tap in the right place might just sort of just push him out of the way a little bit. But then I said to myself while I was in the car, I said, look, try for the opening. If it happens, take it, but don't do that. That's not my way. And 6 points are more valuable than none. And I was just thinking, championship. And that's why, although I pushed real hard and I was trying to crawl all over the back of him and try and get past, I decided to settle for 6 points, because the couple of times I actually got the front wheel alongside his rear wheel, he just pushed me straight into the barriers, which was very exciting for everybody, but on any other circuit, he wouldn't have got away with it.
The Canadian Grand Prix took on a new meaning. Senna had started winning again, and Mansell was relieved of the pressure of extending his run of consecutive victories. The result? Contact. Mansell hit Senna while challenging for the lead, an incident largely missed by Canadian television, but remembered vividly by Mansell.
I had the racing line, I thought everything was perfect, so I went for the gap. And the television didn't show what happened, because he actually moved about, I'd say, close to sort of 15 to 20 feet right across the track, because I actually left a big gap, because I thought he'll move over on me, but I didn't expect him to come right across the track and actually hit me off. So I was pretty mad about that one. But then I was a little bit disappointed as well, because I should have said to myself, why ever give this man the benefit of the doubt? He's done it time and time again. But then I think, well, perhaps he's got to mellow, he's got to mature in some ways, and he's such a great driver, you'd think that he shouldn't have to do things like that, but time and time again he does it.
Given that, and given Monaco, how would you sum up your relationship with Ayrton at that time then?
Oh, I can say now after Australia I don't have any wish to have any kind of rapport or relationship with him at all. I mean, he's a great racer and I respect what his achievements are and what he does, but I don't believe in knocking people off.
The French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours, where we got an insight into the racing relationship and the Williams team relationship of Mansell and Patrese.
Mansell attacks. He's through. Nigel Mansell leads, and now he's fairly streaking away.
Now that was interesting. Patrese raised his arm as he came over the line then. Patrese was leading out of the final corner on the lap then, and as he went past, he put an arm up and Mansell went by.
Well, he let me by, but I would say that I was pushing him real hard if you watch the footage, and he doesn't like being pushed that hard. The one rule that we do have in the team, which is very good, is that we can race like crazy but don't have one another off. And we did touch a few times, and I think he got a little bit excited, and he's actually being radioed saying, look, you're behind on fuel. and he knew that if he tried to keep going like that, he wouldn't finish the race anyway. He'd be 2 laps short.
Close to 200,000 were at Silverstone for British Grand Prix Sunday, but the crowd for Friday qualifying saw a record lap from Mansell, described by Jonathan Palmer.
And hard on the power in second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, across the start-finish line at 170 miles an hour and into sixth to 185 before dabbing the brakes, down to fifth, sweeping through Copse at 150 miles an hour, right out to the edge of the circuit, up to sixth, down towards Beckett's complex, dab on the brakes, down to fifth, 170 there, down to fourth, 150, and once again 130 through the last right-hander of Beckett's. Hard on the power, accelerating, sweeping to the outside of the circuit, taking the racing line, moving across now up to the left-hand side towards Stowe Corner, 185 miles an hour, dab the brakes, down to fourth, 120, sweeping round, keeping tight, hard on the power now, down through the Vale, fifth gear, up to 165, hard on the brakes again, down to second, 60 miles an hour, up to 70, into third gear, fourth gear, pulling 4G now, fifth gear, sweeping out, left-hand side of the circuit, into sixth and towards Abbey Corner, absolutely flat out, 175 miles an hour, pulling up to 180 before the daunting Bridge Corner, sweeping through, absolutely flat out at 185 miles an hour, down to second gear, 70 miles an hour, 80, 90, back down to 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, down on the brakes to second gear again. One more corner to go, second gear through the last part of Woodcut, hard on the power, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, and across the line in a fantastic 1 minute 18.9, the fastest ever lap around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Alongside him, the Italian has again out-dragged Nigel Mansell. He leads into Copse, and Martin Brundle has passed Schumacher, and then the two McLarens, and Nigel Mansell has exerted his authority and has surged past Patrese, and this is turning into a demonstration drive, an absolutely enormous gap.
This is a fantastic performance by Nigel Mansell. He has persevered for the years, and he is now the leading British driver in terms of Grand Prix wins of all time, and what a place to do it for him. Silverstone, he's done it magnificently and in great style. He's managed it well, he's done everything he has to do, and Mansell now set fair to win the World Championship.
They love him and he loves them, and Nigel Mansell comes out of Luffield 1 into Luffield 2, which is the last corner but one. They're breaking ranks, the Union Jacks are waving, and Nigel Mansell wins the 1992 British Grand Prix in terrific style.
Oh, the outstanding memory is the qualifying lap, the second but last lap of the actual race when I smashed the track record, which I did for the crowd, and then the slowdown lap. I mean, the people coming across the circuit. I mean, it's just it just makes you feel incredible.
There were some negative things said about the crowd response, and people are obviously fairly safety conscious at a time like that. But it meant a lot to you, didn't it?
Oh, look, you know, the thing is that when things happen spontaneously like that, as long as everybody is reasonably sensible, and, you know, thank the good Lord, and let's touch a little bit of wood, no one actually got hurt. To have young men, middle-aged men, and I can actually emphatically say I witnessed elderly ladies running onto the track of 60 plus. That's very special, I think, in this country. And I'm not going to criticise them, I'm going to congratulate them and thank them, because their support is just phenomenal.
How did you actually come down from an experience like that?
Well, very quickly actually, because when they lifted me out the car, I had one certain man holding me from underneath, and that woke me up. I was very tired, so I came down to the ground quite quickly after that.
But that evening you wouldn't have slept very much, I wouldn't have thought.
No, you don't really, because you know, we had a party and we stayed the night in Silverstone that night, as we've done historically for the last 8-9 years, and a few people come by and we have a barbecue, and then we just sort of doze, I would say, really, in the campsite before getting up early the next morning to leave. But that sort of situation is a fairy tale. It really is, because the 5 victories I've had in England are the most special victories I've had in my career.
The Silverstone crowd were convinced they were welcoming a British world champion, and they were right to feel confident. Whether they were right to celebrate in quite the way they did is a serious concern for the sport. Behind Mansell and Patrese, Brundle had taken another fine 3rd place. But Mansell, with a 36-point lead, was surely just a few races away from the World Championship title. Round 10 was the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. Mansell was the early leader from Patrese and then took a pit stop. Now he's back in the race and for some time has been running second to the man on his inside, Ayrton Senna. On lap 19, Mansell makes a challenge.
And Mansell goes over the corner there.
And later that same lap, he tried again.
And Mansell goes again now. Is he going to get through this time? Indeed he is.
Mansell would win from Senna, and to the delight of the German crowd, Schumacher was in 3rd. It was a win that meant that Mansell could clinch the title at the next round in Hungary. Maybe even a place in the top 3 would be enough. Mansell with a lead of 46 points over Patrese, with Schumacher 3rd. Patrese would be the early leader, only to drop out. Mansell's main opposition for the title was gone, but there were other problems. Mansell, who had been running in the top 3, comes into the pits. With the race positions as they were, 2nd place would be enough for the title, but at this point it seemed a long way off.
It is lap 62 and the Englishman comes in. Now why? Is it a retirement or is it tyres? Well, they're certainly changing tyres. Meantime, I'm looking for Berger going through, for Schumacher coming through, for Brundle coming through. It's only a short stop. Mansell accelerates out of the pits and he is down in 6th position.
You sort of get close to something and then it doesn't happen. And you know, you work so hard, and we're talking now not just for the 92 season, we're talking your lifetime, your career. And when I dropped back out the points and then sort of made up to 6th place, and then I was trying to figure out what I've actually got to do, and then how many laps to go and how many seconds behind, and you know, is the car okay now, because we did have some peculiar handling situations with the car. We just kept going, and then when I caught then Gerhard, Michael, Martin, and there was another car, and they're all nose to tail, I just said, well, I've got no chance, you know, because they're all literally nose to tail and they're all fighting and darting around. But then I think the advantage I had was the fact I came up on them so quick, they didn't know I was there. And then they were scrapping with each other so much coming out of the corner onto the main straight that I managed to get 2 of them in one go. And then I sort of relaxed a little bit and said, look, calm, Gerhard's not going anywhere because, you know, his tyres are worn out, I've got fresh ones. I was calming myself down, and I'd already overtaken him twice already. I was, you know, and he knew I was there then. And then it was a question of picking the moment, and then he pushed me very hard across the track, almost into the barrier, but we got by and we had a little bit of a slip slide at the end of the straight. But I'm pleased to say then I was in 2nd place.
Now is this where the Englishman is going through? Yes! Yes, he forces Gerhard Berger wide. Here he is. He hasn't got far to go now, because when he comes out of this right-hander, dropping downhill, he will go into turn 10, the 2nd gear, 60-mile-an-hour corner, and he's up to the last corner now. He's 2nd in the race, but he is the world champion of 1992.
After driving for 30 years and being second twice to Ayrton and once to Alain, you know, you think that you're never going to crack it, and I think that race was interesting to say the least, wasn't it? So I don't think I'll take it in for a little while, so if you'll speak to the others, I'll sit here quietly for a minute. We've been paid this year for all the hard work and heartaches. There's an awful lot of things been thrown our way. We've had an awful lot of people who have not helped my career, but we've also had a staunch lot of supporters which have helped. But the single most important part of my career has been the support worldwide from the fans, and without any exception the fans of this country. And they're the ones I've got to thank the most. They're the ones that are the closest to my heart.
Mansell had dominated the season, but there were plenty of stories, plenty of achievements in the pack behind. Michael Schumacher arrived as a considerable star with Benetton, eventually taking third place in the championship behind Mansell and Patrese. Schumacher and his teammate Brundle looked evenly matched at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, but the German recovered from this mistake that let Brundle through, and with Mansell and Patrese hitting problems, Schumacher would lead the two Williams home for his first Grand Prix victory. Brundle deserved more from 1992. He finished 6th in the championship, and by the end of the season he'd achieved the consistency that he was missing at the start. He was the only driver to score points in each of the last 9 rounds. But the season had begun with a spin on the very first lap of the South African Grand Prix, and there were retirements in Mexico, Brazil and Spain. Released by Benetton for 1993, he shouldn't be out of Formula One for long. Brundle was a splendid second in Italy, where Ayrton Senna took only his 3rd win of the season. For Senna, the 1991 world champion, it was a season of great frustrations. A heavy accident while qualifying in Mexico. And as Mansell and Patrese made their escape, he was accused of holding up the rest of the field in Brazil. In the French Grand Prix, he became the victim of Schumacher's enthusiasm. A few others were victims as well. The wins in Italy and Hungary, and in particular Monaco, were rare consolations. And with Honda leaving Formula One, Senna's plans, and indeed McLaren's, are none too clear for 1993. Jean Alesi put a brave face on the poor showing of Ferrari, who finished a distant 4th in the Constructors' Championship. The Frenchman could be relied upon to supply glamour, commitment and controversy. That's the Alesi commitment. The controversy came at Imola. Alesi versus Senna, with Berger behind. Jean Alesi, who tried hard in a trying year. Riccardo Patrese had his best ever season, a win and 6 second places, second in the championship. But he was never more than an able support for Mansell, the new world champion.
The world motor racing champion Nigel Mansell says he'll retire from Formula One competition at the end of this season. He announced his decision before.
To my mind, it comes down to fair play, or the lack of it. Money, a trigger for the problems after Hungary, is now no longer an issue for me. And just so you know, because I want you to know everything, I was just told and whispered that everything's agreed, just as I was sitting here before you now.
But everything plainly was not agreed. What was certain was that Alain Prost had tied up a 1993 Williams drive way back in February. When he made his announcement in Monza, it was unclear why Mansell's negotiations with Williams had gone sour. Certainly Ayrton Senna offering to drive for Williams next year for free hadn't helped, but he was not a realistic candidate to run as a teammate to Prost. Mansell swiftly decided to race IndyCars in North America next year, a big loss for Formula One and a turn of events that had surprised and angered Mansell.
I think it was 3 days after the Hungarian Grand Prix when I received a phone call from director of Williams saying that unfortunately what had all been agreed was not agreed now, and that they were signing Ayrton.
Is that a total bombshell, completely out of the blue?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was mortified. People that were with me at the time can actually say that it was, you know, from winning the World Championship and then 3 days later not even receiving the phone call from Frank myself. You just disbelieve it. You just don't, this is not happening. Surely not, you know, not after all what's been agreed. And of course the biggest problem I had was not necessarily with myself, it was with my wife Roseanne, because she was at all the meetings and everything else. But I mean, I have to say, rather than sort of having a post-mortem, that, you know, people choose to do what they want. Unfortunately he chose to go the way he did. I certainly don't agree with it, but I mean, I'm big enough to say, well, you know, I wasn't wanted for a period of 3 weeks, and so unfortunately I had to make my choice of either retiring or going somewhere else, and I'm pleased to say that the Newman Haas team came along and snatched me up
very quickly. Do you think you made that decision too quickly?
No, not really, because it was 3 weeks after the Hungarian Grand Prix, and there was a 10-day period where negotiations had started up again, but not what I term as positively. It was only if this or but that, and that's remembering that you must disregard what was all agreed in the first place. So it was just, you know, very regrettable, and it's a great shame, and you know, the loser in all of it is obviously the sport itself, and the fact that I won't be able to defend my championship in the manner which that I was afforded to win it.
We're talking large sums of money, and I thought several times we were very close. Maybe we were, but of course by this time Nigel had become unsettled. I think he was a little more worried than he admitted about the prospect of Prost being his teammate. He had heard the rumours about Senna talking to the team. These also unsettled him, and I think maybe his pride was a little dented. I can well understand that. My opinion is that he was too hasty, but he is his own man, and only he can judge what is best for him, and at the end of the day you must respect what he has decided to do, which is go to America, and I wish him well, truly wish him well in that. I think he'll just electrify them.
In the meantime, the championship went on, and there was no less commitment from Mansell, who in Portugal was chasing that elusive 9th win that would give him a new season's record for Formula One. He'd qualified on pole position and had stormed away from the field in the opening laps. Then came a pit stop that the whole team must have approached with some trepidation. Estoril was where a pit lane mistake last year had effectively cost Mansell his title chance. No problems this time, Mansell's Williams crew working as smoothly as they had done all season. The world champion was on his way to another record.
Nigel Mansell just underlines really what a terrible shame it is that we're losing him to kart racing in the United States, and it's a pity for everybody, but he's shown us today, just what we're going to miss, because we will miss him. And he's driven magnificently. He took it pretty quietly early on, then in the middle of the race, he really put the hammer down and charged away from everybody and turned it into yet another very easy win indeed.
And as Mansell crosses the line, Mansell wins the Portuguese Grand Prix and a record 9th win in one season. Closes up on Senna. Everybody is getting away. Mansell leads. Senna second. Patrese third. Schumacher is up to fourth. Alesi is fifth. Berger is down to sixth. Brundle is seventh. There's a spinner. It's one of the Delaras. Mansell with Senna tucked up behind him. Senna is giving Mansell no rest at all. The last Grand Prix in their present circumstances for both of them. Each regards the other as his main rival, and rightly so. And what a classic this is turning out to be.
And Senna really trying with the back markers. And that's just what he was looking for. He got close enough and we missed it, but Senna must have had a real go then. And there's still a car in front of them.
They'll both go out! Mansell was destined not to finish the Australian Grand Prix, and that's exactly the same situation for Ayrton Senna that he was in the previous year with his left wheel, and Mansell is furious!
I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he misjudged his braking totally. I think he was incredibly fired up for the last race, because it's probably his last race for a year. I don't know whether he's going to drive in '93. And he definitely has a problem of not being in the best car and having the best equipment at all times. And I think he was rattled to the point that it affected his judgment. And I don't think, I hope anyway, that he didn't do it deliberately. I'd like to think that he made a very small error, which unfortunately had the magnitude of sidelining both of us, which was a great, great shame.
You mentioned the manner in which he brake tested you in Monaco. There's been speculation here that maybe that was an element.
Well, you go into a corner there, which is only a second gear corner, and I was braking, and when he actually hit me, I was in the apex pretty well of the corner. I have to brake, and I have to go around that corner, and I would suggest that in that corner you're braking down from 160 miles an hour, and at the time when he hit me, we were only a matter of 30 feet from the corner. So you'd actually started braking at least probably 40 yards sooner than that. So I would suggest that he just missed his braking point, and if I hadn't have been in front, he wouldn't have made the corner anyway.
Apart from that, what sort of exit did you make to the Formula One scene? You got out of the car, you walked back to the paddock, then what?
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, things happen in slow motion, and I was going through my mind that perhaps the best thing I could do now, and I got the perfect excuse, is go back there and deck him. But
it looked possible at one moment.
Oh, it looked possible at one moment. I got to say that it actually went through my mind, and then I said, no, he's made a pretty serious mistake. You know, he's taken the champion out of the race, he's taken himself out of the race, he's sidelined both of us, which was going to be a great race if we would have both continued and not had the problem. And I said, no, I don't want any confrontation. I'm going to go and do it properly and go and see the stewards and see what they have to say about it. Because I honestly thought that it justified him at least being called to the stewards and being talked about. Regrettably, you know, it wasn't to be. So I just said a few things and decided to leave without seeing him, because if I'd have seen him, there'd have been too much to write about.
That was it. You packed your bag, you left the circuit, and that was Formula One for you?
Yes, that was Formula One, but I've got an inordinate amount of friends in Formula One, and I've got phenomenal fans and some great sponsors. So although I've left, I've still got the contacts, I've still got the friendships, and so it's still going to be a whole part of my life, because I mean it's been my whole life for so long.
The end of 1992 and the 1993 Formula One season will go ahead without its reigning world champion and possibly without its other great star, Ayrton Senna. But last season was full of reassurance that Grand Prix motor racing would remain the great spectacle it's always been. Riccardo Patrese survived that horrifying crash at Estoril, and it's a great testament to Formula One that there were no serious injuries in Grand Prix racing last year. As Mansell leaves, a fine opportunity presents itself for Damon Hill, who's been named alongside Prost in the Williams team next year. He'll have the burden of British expectations, which Mansell has borne throughout the last decade. 3 times runner-up, but finally the champion. Whatever the car, whatever the talent, winning the world title is never easy.
And look at that! Out that, and colossally, that's Mansell! That is Nigel Mansell, and the car absolutely shattered. He's fighting for control, and you can see what's happened. Mansell is out of the race. Now, this could change and will change the World Championship. Mansell harrying Ayrton Senna, and off that Mansell, that's him, Mansell out, and the World Championship has been won by Ayrton Senna. So Mansell comes out of the last corner, he's second in the race, but he is the World Champion of 1992.